Okay, it's time to bring in our panel right now. We're joined today here in the studio by Politico's Adam Wren, UIndy political science professor, Dr. Laura Wilson, and two former state lawmakers, Republican Mike Murphy and Democrat Terry Austin. Terry, I'll start with you. Another onslaught of news this week from D.C. on immigration and tariffs, and now capped off by this horrific plane crash. Right as new leadership takes over at the FAA and the Department of Transportation, and now a lot of reaction as well to the president's controversial comments on this crash.
Well, his comments, quite honestly, were not out of character for him. I mean, he shoots from the hip, he says what he wants, they're the most outlandish that he can make them. But these particular comments were beyond the pale and, quite honestly, beneath the dignity of the office of the President of the United States. This is no time to score political points. The families, the safety of the flying public should be first and foremost, and that should be the first thing out of your mouth.
Mike, sadly, a woman from Indiana was among those who were killed. A lot of Indiana lawmakers reacting to that news. We haven't seen a commercial airline crash in the United States since 2009. It's a pretty important moment here for the federal government as they look into how this happened, but also at a time where the federal government may be drastically reshaped.
Yeah, exactly. And FAA has a big challenge ahead of them. And one of the things they do in their investigations is they try never to blame a person, they blame systems. Because the people come and go, but what they try to do is make sure that these mistakes can never happen again, no matter who's behind the throttle or whatever they call it that runs the plane.
Right.
But so that's what their challenge is, to figure out how you stop it.
Right.
And that takes some pretty bright people.
Laura, your thoughts on all that? This seems to be one of those moments that underscores the importance of some of these federal agencies, even as at a time where their budgets are really being scrutinized.
Right, and it could be a policy issue. I mean, honestly, to kind of push back on Mike, sometimes it feels like, is it just an individual error, which is horrible and tragic in itself, or is it an error of systems? Is it error of policy in terms of what we're doing or what we're not doing, what we've cut before? I think the hardest thing is to reserve judgment until we have all the information, but of course we have curiosity as human beings, and for something this tragic and absolutely awful, we want to know immediately who's to blame, why did it go wrong, how do we prevent it in the future?
Sure.
The reality of the answers take longer.
Yeah. Adam, when it comes to the president's comments on this crash, they centered on the Biden administration and the former transportation secretary and former South Bend mayor, Pete Buttigieg. What did you make of his reaction to this in a moment where he's also contemplating what he's going to do next?
Well, it feels crass, quite frankly, to talk about the political implications
Sure.
of this. But at the same time, anytime the president of the United States makes someone from the opposite party the cause du jour, that is, I think, beneficial to them politically. I mean, he used to talk about Governor Gretchen Whitmer as that woman from Michigan, and that essentially won her re-election and ended up on a T-shirt. I think Pete Buttigieg made himself probably the most prominent Democrat to sort of find a way in to criticize the president and his still young administration.
This entire topic here of diversity and DEI initiatives, not only a part of the president's remarks about this crash this week, but also a big topic lately at the State House with new Governor Mike Braun giving his State of the State. And we spoke about that with our panelists, Robin Winston and Tony Samuel.
Across the board here in state government and federal government, we need to get back to merit, which means choosing the best of the best.
We've got to bring this rhetoric down. We're not even into the first month of a new term. And we're saying that a plane crash was a result of diversity? No, it was a result of someone making a mistake.
Everybody's for diversity, but what's important here and what the President Trump is saying, what Governor Braun is saying, is we're basing everything on competence, on merit, on innovation, on excellence. And this is leadership. For too long here, over the last 4 years at least, this country has been slipping because we've been focused on the wrong things.
It isn't necessarily about DEI at the state level. It is about the image of Indiana at the national level. We are a big, if you don't believe me, look at the downtown hotel, 40-story hotel being built extensively for tourism. And it is crucial that the state have a positive image. When you begin by saying we do not believe in diversity, we do not believe in equity and inclusion the way that it had been structured, that sets a different tone, and it can have a ripple effect, and it has.
All right, Terry, your thoughts on all that, and what were your thoughts on the State of the State this week, even as some lawmakers remained outside of the House chamber at that rally that was going on outside?
Well, let me speak to the diversity issue first. As a longtime former special ed teacher, I can tell you that I have had friends who have worked within the newly monikered DEI programs, it is not just about race and LGBTQ issues. One friend actually works with the adult autism population, helping them develop not just workplace skills, but actually placing them in jobs so that they can have a quality of life, start to become more self-supporting, maybe live semi-independently. We are throwing out the baby with the bathwater by saying we're going to discontinue all these programs. You've got to look and really understand what they all consist of and not just do these knee-jerk reactions because it's the fashionable thing to do right now, and it's the thing that everybody wants to criticize.
Mike, Governor Braun mentioned some of his rollbacks of DEI initiatives in his State of the State. He also talked about immigration, property taxes, a number of big issues. What did you make of his address?
I thought it was actually fairly well done. He hit all the highlights that he had to hit. It was a carryover from the campaign, so he's trying to turn promises made into promises accomplished. I thought it was actually fairly good. But the question always comes that you make these promises in your State of the State, and then how do you actually carry them out? And always in the first 4 or 5 months of a new administration, there's a lot of mistakes, just human nature, and a lot of regrets. We'll do better next time.
Laura, this was a big moment for the new governor, no doubt. He talked a lot about his property tax plan. Anything else that stood out to you in particular?
Well, I would add to Mike's point. I mean, this is like doing an annual evaluation after 3 weeks on the
Sure,
job. It's
right.
really difficult. I thought in general he was able to point to several things that he had promised on the campaign trail and was able to do having started. I thought one of the things that really did stand out to me was he had a number of people in the gallery seats that he could point to use a personal
Sure.
narrative. This is a person from this city who's having this problem. And certainly they do that a lot in State of the Unions. I don't think we've seen it as much in State of the States, but it helps translate policies to people, which makes it more relatable to voters.
He did that a couple of times. Immigration, one of the issues that came up there, Adam. It's been a hot topic this week with Senator Banks calling out the police chief here in Indianapolis, their department, and the FOP responding, saying it's not the role of local police departments to enforce federal law, but that's certainly been an interesting back and forth in recent days that's also received some national attention too.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is a pent-up frustration among state and local officials who for decades have struggled with the ramifications of immigration and a broken system that Congress has been enabled to address, you know, dating back to the 2008 immigration reform effort from George W. Bush. So I think, you know, they are trying to find ways to handle this really felt problem by their constituents, and it's proving messy for everybody involved.
All right, our thanks to the panel. They'll be back in a couple minutes. Up next, we're going to talk about road funding and why your food deliveries could factor into that equation. That's coming up next.